co-CEO of ROEST, and we're going to talk about the new P3000 machine today. How are you doing, Trond?
All good. I'm very good. It's finally a sunny day in Oslo.
I came during a heat wave with 30-degree weather in Oslo, which is pretty awesome. Tell me a little bit about the history of this machine, because I know you've been working on it for quite a long time.
Yeah, I mean, we started working on it in 2019. And that was just started working on some prototypes. But the idea came to us back in 2016 when we were discussing, we needed investors to finish up the sample roaster, and they wanted to see what's next. So that's when we kind of like started looking into what will be the next after the sample roaster. And then that was P1000, and now it's P3000.
Okay, awesome.
So it's been in the works for quite some years.
So I'm aware there's, every time you build the machine, there's incredible challenges. So what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced getting this into production?
There's been tons of problems, for sure. I think most of them have been actually related to how we construct the drum so that we have the energy efficiency that we want. That's been kind of like the main pain point. Finding that supplier that can actually make something within our tolerances.
Okay.
Yeah, that's been.
So can you tell me about the drum? Like, what does it look like? Where does the air go in and out? Where are the beans, etc.?
Yeah. So I unplugged our roaster.
It's too loud.
That's okay. That's okay.
It was too loud.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we actually do a roast fairly similar to how we roast on the sample roaster, and nearly identical to how we roast on the upgraded sample roaster when you do a reversed roasting. So basically the heat goes through, is blown through some heating elements, and then they go to a perforated drum, and then they go through the beans, which is always in a wave move towards the heat. So it's a highly efficient way of roasting, and we also get very good consistency. But one major benefit is also that we don't have a need for between batch protocol. You can have it, but if you just want to do production, then it is also possible to just don't have any between batch protocols. You just start your profile at the end of the last profile.
Okay. And what does the drum look like? Because I think this one to me looks quite different from the sample roaster. I mean, they're similar in the sense that they are a stationary drum with paddles moving the beans around. But the air comes in more or less from the side on this one, right?
Yeah.
And the beans are pushed up against the area where the air comes in.
Yeah. So actually, like normally on our shop roaster, you would have the drum like this.
Yeah.
And then you have like the window here, and then you take the coffee out that way, right? But in P3000, we have put the whole drum like this. That's also where we don't have the traditional window where you can see the coffee. It's actually, we have a window, but it's just not, you can't see it without the camera.
Yeah.
So the drum is kind of like put like this way, and then the heat comes from the back, and then the paddles is moving the coffee in this orientation, so it like pushes the coffee towards the heat from the perforated area, and then it also gets a second wave past the coffee when you hit it on the other side. If you understand.
Yeah. So I think something that's unique about this machine is that while you are roasting, there's a camera, and the camera is taking a photo of the beans how frequently? Once a second?
I think we can select how, and that's like we can probably do that. The user can probably change how often they want to have it.
Okay.
In the beginning the idea was to have it as a video, but it becomes too blurry and it becomes hard to see. And then we realized when we send it each second, you can actually get some time to see the coffee before there's a new picture.
Okay.
Not over-promising, but I think that can be something that the user can set in the settings once we get to it.
But let's say, for argument's sake, somebody sees a new photo of the beans every second or so. It's actually kind of fascinating to watch because you see the beans in a different position each time. You see the gentle change in the color. Are there any plans to make more use of this camera?
Definitely, for sure. I think that the first thing we will look into is like, okay, what kind of color readings can we get out of the camera? And then we also have some long-term plans in terms of, okay, can we also look at how they expand, for example?
Right.
So these are the things that we are going to start looking into now when the roaster itself is done, and we can actually experiment more on the data side.
Yeah. One thing I love about, okay, so you have a piece of hardware that's integrated with a lot of software. And one thing I love about this is you take something like the camera. Now, if you have an old style drum roaster, you just have a thermocouple. The thermocouple has a lot of mass. It's always lagging in its temperature readings. This camera potentially gives us the chance for the software to interpret what it's seeing, right? So for instance, you know, the camera might see a bean and it might see a dark spot behind the bean.
Yeah.
But conceivably, we could train the software to just ignore the dark spots and focus on the spots that we care about, and then perhaps average the colors that it's seeing and maybe coming up with some sort of real-time reading or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So I see a lot of potential in the data that you're collecting, and the fact that the software and hardware are integrated in order to make the machine a lot smarter.
Yeah.
Tell me about my favorite future feature is the automatic feeder.
Yeah.
So what's going on with that, and what will that do for us?
Yeah, I would say like the feeder. The reason why we started with the feeder, and essentially the feeder is basically a feeder you have on the floor, which you can fill with 100 kilos of coffee, and then the roaster interacts with the feeder. It has a weight cell, so it will scale out your like if it's 3 kilos or 2.5, and then once it's weighed out and the roaster is ready, it will vacuum the coffee into the hopper and start roasting. So this would kind of like be the automated system where you essentially all you need to do is put the coffee into the feeder, start the roaster, and tell it how many kilos and how many batches it's going to roast. And then by having a bucket in the front, you will then just have a fully automated system where you just get some alerts if something is off, or if not, then it should be able to roast 100 kilos in somewhere around 4 hours.
Right. So I mean, as a user, this excites me a lot because I want to be able to tell the machine, do 30 batches, 3 kilos each of this coffee. I know that from using the machine, because we have one at Prodigal, that we can set an end condition for the roast of development time or DTR or bean temperature or total time or whatever we want it to. And the machine can weigh it precisely, run a between batch protocol, whatever you program, run the batch, cool it, eject it, and start the next batch. And that's kind of a miracle because you know, at the end of the day, once you've decided how you want to roast a coffee, we're mostly using data to guide us anyway. And once we decide what that data is, then the machine can do as good or better job than almost any human can if it just repeats it over and over, right? So that to me is super exciting.
Yeah, and it's like I guess one of the things that we think in terms of consistency, we do think that in order to have like the best consistency, the roaster is best at doing that work.
Yes.
So we have created a roaster to be as consistent as possible.
Right.
That's why Sveta has put 18 temperature sensors in there. You have 4 just for the bean temperature, you have 6 for the inlet,
right.
and so on. And so we'll moving the coffee knowledge into the cupping room, and then that's where you can set the profiles and so on. But once you have found your profile for that coffee, and obviously with AI and everything, we will also assist in that process in the future. But once that is set, then the roaster will just do that work for you.
So, you know, in my own experience on the machine, just to fill people in, because there's so much data that the machine collects. For instance, there's numerous sensors that are measuring the drum temperature. So these sensors are touching the inside of the roasting chamber, right? And they're in different positions, and the software is able to blend and average their readings, right? And so the other day I was using the P3000, and just the BBP was a very simple thing where as soon as the average drum temperature dropped to 150, we just charged the next batch. And that simple, very, very fast BBP based on that gave us perfectly replicated curves every single batch, which you know is one of the advantages of air roasting, because you don't have to manage the hot drum temperature with the same intensity that you do in a drum roaster. and also just access to all this data and software that can handle the data for you is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So it was, to me, this is like the easiest machine in the world to get consistent replicated roasts, which is kind of, to me, hopefully every roaster's goal.
Yeah. And that's also the feedback we get from our pilot customers so far. We've had pilot customers for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
You have pilot customers because there will be bugs and they will find them and you'll have to
Yes.
sort them out. So they've found some bugs for us.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing they've always said is like the consistency is super great.
Yeah.
And that's also one of the goals we had when we
Mm-hmm.
started developing. So that's really nice to hear that we actually succeeded on that one.
Mm-hmm. Were there some things that you learned from the sample roaster that you then applied to this machine, or let's say surprises or anything like that, feedback, things like that? Like what did we get from the sample roaster that then we were able to make a better P3000 from?
Yeah. There's multiple things. I would say that the most critical part, which Sverre, which then is my brother and the CTO, has been working very hard on is maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Making maintenance as simple as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine, like we made this so that you can roast 500 kilos a week
Mm-hmm.
on a 3 kilo roaster.
Yes,
So of course
yes.
maintenance needs to be important. But that's also what the most critical part we've taken from the sample roaster. The sample roasters you can like fairly easily take apart and put it back together and clean the inside and the cyclone and so on. But on P3000 we wanted to make it even easier to do all these operations without taking it apart.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you can clean the cyclone from the top, from the exhaust,
Mm-hmm.
for example. So and you can take the drum pretty much apart if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
To clean from the inside as well, and like the daily maintenance is easily accessible like this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been one of the kind of like the key things we've been looking into
Mm-hmm.
when designing P3000 is maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
and of course energy efficiency, which is one of those things that you helped with, because in your home you had some issues with scorching the coffee because your altitude is so high,
Right,
and
right.
we were going around in circles on okay, how can we fix this and improve this, and that's when we started with this reverse drum roasting,
Right.
which is essentially the same as we do in P3000.
So to clarify, what we figured out was we figured out how to move the beans to make the heat transfer more efficient.
Yeah.
And what happened was when we tried this new modified version that you gave me, at the same air temperatures, our roasts were done in half the time.
Yeah.
So 8-minute roasts became 4-minute roasts at the same temperatures, which means that our heat transfer efficiency basically doubled. So we don't roast in 4 minutes, we choose to roast in 6. Not that you couldn't roast in 4. But we are able to use far lower temperatures, and because we roast at 1,700 meters altitude, our air is very thin,
Yep.
and we need exceptionally high air temperatures to get the same result that someone at sea level would get. So because of that, we had very high temperatures, and that kind of was an unfortunate problem, but also a lucky one, because it allowed us to figure out a way to make the heat transfer a little more efficient, get the temperatures lower, and now we have machines that use even less fuel and even lower temperatures, so these are wins overall. Yeah. Lauren, I know we didn't talk about this before, but I want to open it up to questions since we have plenty of time. If you see any questions online, if anybody wants to ask anything, can you let us know?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. What's next? So you guys are starting production now. You are actually selling the machine. So from a customer's perspective, where are we on this timeline?
Yeah, currently we are finishing up our first round of certification, and we have actually we got all the parts, so we're in actual production with the production model. We're sold out for the year, but customers can now go to our webpage, roastcoffee.com, and put down a deposit for the first productions in 2026.
Okay.
So yeah, we're finally there. It's all about getting the units spread around the world now.
Yes. Random question, but how much electrical power do you need to run this machine? If you have 220 volts, how many amps do you need?
Yeah, okay.
want
let
to
me
say
see.
35? Depends. Does that sound right?
I mean, it's the roaster itself is on 220. It's 10,000 kilowatts.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be about on a single line. I think you need something like 50.
Mm-hmm.
So they can come and
Yep.
tell us something else if that's incorrect. Most of our European customers use three-phase 400 volts. So then 16 amps is fine.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
But it's a very energy efficient roaster. You
Mhm.
rarely use 10 kilowatts.
Mhm.
I think our roasts, which are fairly fast, 6 to 7 minutes, that's when then we use around 6,000
Wow.
kilowatts of power.
Yeah. Yeah. That's quite low.
Yeah, so you will never, I don't think anybody will come into a situation where they don't have enough power. We have overpowered your roaster.
Mhm. Nice. I know that some people in the U.S. have asked about single-phase machines. I know it's possible. I think you just lose a little potential production efficiency, right? But
Yeah.
not a big deal.
Yeah, you'll lose some of the power, but
Mhm.
then again,
You have to
on
wait
the
for power. Yeah.
on the 400 volt 16
Right.
amps version, you have so much power, so there is some room to go down on.
Nice.
We do have a few questions.
Okay, let's answer a few questions.
What is a reasonable volume to roast per month on a P3000?
So we say 500 kilos a week. That's what we've designed it for. That was the ambition. Of course, if you're going to do that manually, that will take some work. But when we say 500, then we kind of put in the feeder as well. You roast 100 kilos a day, and then kind of 500 kilos. That shouldn't be a problem.
Mhm.
We do have customers who are planning on roasting 1 ton a week. It will just require a little bit more of maintenance and so on.
Mhm.
So it is definitely possible. Roasting 100 kilos should be about 4 hours, if I'm not mistaken, depending on your profiles.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you
So-
should be able to do 8 batches per hour, 3
Yeah.
kilos per batch, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is 3 kilograms the recommended roast volume per batch?
Yeah. We often use 2.5 kilos, I think, but you can definitely, it's designed for 3 kilos. It's not like 10% less or anything like that.
Yeah, this isn't a drum roaster, and this may sound funny to people who are used to drum roasting, but air roasters tend to work most efficiently at full batches. So you've got the best heat transfer, and there's no downside to doing a full batch. In fact, it's generally a positive.
Great. What's the main difference coming from a drum roasting approach using the P3000? Does it behave similar to a Loring, for example?
Somewhat similar. I mean, the control mechanism in the P3000 and Loring is quite different, because the Loring, much like, say, a Probot, operates on gas valve settings. So in a Loring, you have a recipe that calls for 80% gas, and then 70, and then 60. On the ROEST, both the sample roaster and the P3000, you have the option of using inlet temperatures, which is a little bit better of a system, because let's say you were in your roastery and you come in the morning and it's 10 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and you turn on the machine. What happens inside the machine is going to be identical at that point in the morning as it would in the afternoon if it was 30 degrees or 85 degrees in the afternoon, because inlet temperatures the inlet temperature control is going to control what's happening inside the machine regardless of the ambient conditions. Whereas when you use gas valve settings, the air feeding the burner has a slight influence on the air temperature inside the roaster. So it's a step forward in terms of consistency regardless of the ambient conditions.
Okay, well, my personal question,
Yes.
how do you get a P3000 now?
As we said, you have to just go online and put down a deposit, and then we'll get back to you as soon as we are ready with the next production run.
I assume we're probably about 4 or 6 months out in terms of if someone ordered one now.
We're working on the current orders, and our capacity for this year is out, but we do take the deposits, and by putting down the deposit, you kind of get your place in the queue.
Yeah.
We try to honor that as best as we can in terms of priorities.
All right. Anything we didn't cover?
Probably a lot.
Probably a lot, yes. So I'll say one thing that I took a note on is that I think one thing to understand about the difference between air roasting and drum roasting is that there are countless ways in which air roasting is more forgiving. So it's not that you can't get an equally good result out of a drum roaster. It's just that air roasting makes it easier, and it's also faster.
Yeah.
So in a drum roaster, you're a little bit limited in how fast you can roast, because if you roast very fast, the drum metal is going to get extremely hot, and you're going to get a lot of conductive heat transfer. That can give coffee a little more body, but it tends to make the coffee taste a little harsh or burnt, and it definitely decreases flavor clarity along with any increase in body you might get. So you have to keep an eye on managing the drum temperature when you use a drum roaster, and this can be challenging. In an air roaster, you can roast extremely fast. If you want to do, say, 5-minute roasts, you can get the same quality that you would get at a, say, a 10-minute roast. And your ROR curve can be a little bit messier looking. A lot of things in the air roasting are very forgiving in terms of, ooh, I made a small mistake here, or ooh, this didn't go perfectly, but the end result will still taste exceptional. Whereas in a drum roaster, there's a lot of pitfalls, a lot of ways your roasts can taste worse. And so, using an air roaster and using an air roaster that has inlet temperature control gives you very easy consistency, repeatability, and it makes roasting much more forgiving. I think that's, if I wanted to send one message to people about why they should be using an air roaster like this, it would be that.
Yeah. And I would say like the efficiency is definitely one of those key elements.
Yeah. I mean, if you bought a 5-kilo drum roaster, you'd conceivably get about 4 batches per hour if you were to do full batches. So you'd get about 20 kilos per hour of green roasted. If you bought a 3-kilo roost, you could get 24, let's say, kilos per hour roasted. So even though it's a 3-kilo machine, it's actually about double the efficiency of a 5-kilo drum roaster. So when you're making a buying decision about various roasters, it's important to look at hourly productivity, not the stated size of the machine.
Yeah, I guess what we say is that we don't scale the batch size, we scale the process. So it's with the automated feeder, you can roast. Yeah, I guess that's kind of how we started as well. Is like we were looking into, okay, what is required if you're going to start roasting, and one of the key things is that you need to buy a big, large, expensive equipment for your small volume roasting in the beginning,
Yes.
and then you scale, or you need to start with one and then buy a bigger roaster later. And that's kind of like what we also wanted to solve. That you start with 3 kilos here. Maybe your volume for the first week is 3 kilos. Then you roast 3 times 1 kilos, and you have 3 kilos. But then as you grow, you can scale and go up to 500 kilos a week, for example. And if you scale further, then you can add one more roaster, and then you suddenly have 1 ton a week easily.
So when I first learned about this machine and also the feeder, my first thought was, this is a game changer for cafes. Because most cafes use 20, 40, 50 kilos a week of coffee.
Yep.
That's 2 or 3 hours of production in a machine like this. And if you have all this automation, you have all this repeatability, you have potentially the automated feeder, the cafe can now spend virtually no time producing their coffee, but get superior results with a lot of consistency, and they don't have to have a lot of experience. Really, then their entire job is just fine green coffee. And once they've done that, now they've turned themselves into a roastery and saved potentially 40, 50% on their coffee costs, which is pretty amazing.
We have a couple more questions that have come in.
Certainly.
Well, first of all, what is the price? One?
What's the price?
Do you remember?
I believe it's 32,900 euros.
Yes. Someone from Indonesia is asking kind of how does the machine react with when it's 36 to 39 degrees Celsius, outdoors?
That shouldn't be a problem at all. Again, going back to when you have inlet temperature control, it doesn't really matter what your ambient conditions are. The cooling process will be slightly slower because the air passing through the cooler will be warmer, but something like 35 degrees is not a problem. It won't affect the flavor of the coffee at all. The cooling might take an extra 30 seconds, but it's not really an issue.
And then the last one, do you recommend using a between batch protocol in the P3000, or can you charge immediately?
I'm going to combine our both point of views on this. Generally, yes, use a BBP. But if you are roasting, let's say, all different coffees to virtually the same roast level, you should be able to get away with a very short interval between roasts, from a few seconds to maybe 30 seconds. If you were doing some really dark roasts and some really light roasts, then the BBB becomes more important because even an air roaster has metal with some mass and some stored energy. And if you, let's say you do like a French roast, a very dark roast, you will need a little bit of time to cool that metal if you were switching between light and dark roasts.
Yeah.
But if you're roasting at a consistent roast level and the drum temperature is ending at roughly the same temperature every time, you're going to be able to have virtually no or no BBB.
Nice.
Yeah. All right.
That's
Well,
it.
I think that's it. Thanks for your time, Trond. I'm
Thank you.
pretty excited about this project.
We are as well, and finally the time is here to start shipping.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for viewing, and yeah, take care.